If you're planning a surf trip to the Maldives, this is everything you need to know. In the Maldives, the main season runs between April and October. This is when the largest Indian Ocean swells grace the reef passes around the island. That said, shoulder season such as March and even until late October can be really good times to visit the island. You know, in March you often get less winds. In October you might get a bit more rain, but there's still pretty consistent swells. I've been in both of those seasons actually and scored fun waves both times. There are a ton of different waves here, all coral reef passes in the form of lefts, rights, A-frame peaks. Some are pretty mellow and soft, you know, really forgiving walls that are really fun for turns, whereas other breaks are definitely a bit more powerful, you know, they're a lot shallower, a lot hollower. So while the Maldives has this reputation for being a mellow alternative to say Fiji or the Mentawai, you know, it's still reef and it can still pack a punch, so just be prepared for that. No matter where you're visiting, you need to fly into Valana International Airport. For the central and southern atolls, that requires a domestic flight from Male, which can be really expensive. They charge a green tax and they charge extortionate fees for surfboards. So that's one of those things that's, you know, puts people off from going, but it also makes it a bit less crowded as well. So yeah, it's just one of those things. Either stay on a local island, a local hotel, go all out on a private luxury resort, or you can jump aboard a charter boat. And while there are a few different local islands that you could go and stay on, I'd recommend staying on Toulouse. This island just has the most to offer in terms of accommodation, restaurants, accessibility. It's just got the most surfing infrastructure. Alternatively, if you have the cash and want to score some private and likely uncrowded waves, you can stay at one of the resorts. There are several high-end resorts in the Maldives that offer exclusive or semi-exclusive access to nearby breaks, which is a really appealing thing. So if you've got the money, you can definitely splash out on that, and a solid way to get uncrowded waves. Then lastly, you've got a charter boat, which is going to give you the most flexibility in chasing waves around the island. Charter boats all employ local guides from the Maldives, so not only will you have the ability to sort of go and chase the best waves when they are the best waves, you'll be able to tap into that local knowledge as well, and they'll be able to put you in the right place at the right time. So this leads me on perfectly to today's video sponsor, Renegade Surf Travel. Now, back in March, I was lucky enough to jump on board with these guys, and we scored some really fun waves in a more remote part of the island. And while I can't promise it'll always look exactly like this, what I can promise is you'll have a really sick time. They run Maldives trips throughout the entire season, from March all the way up until the end of October into November, all over the Maldives, including both the central and southern atolls. On their boats, you'll have private rooms, sick food 3 times a day, and a crew on hand just to look after you and make sure you're having a good time. And best of all, you're going to get better at surfing with film sessions every day and sit-down video analysis and theory sessions every evening to go back through your clips, see what you're doing wrong, and then you can apply that to the very next session, which is by far the best way to get better at surfing. They run trips for various different abilities, so if you want to find out more, I'll leave the link down in the description where you can check that out. For now, let's crack on with the video. Okay, so who is the Maldives best suited for? The best way to answer this is to say kind of who it's not for. And I don't reckon the Maldives is the best for complete beginners or like relatively new surfers, just because when you go from learning in the whitewater, or you know, even getting out back and surfing in these soft, like friendly beach breaks, going to these reef passes is just a bit of a different ball game. You know, these reef passes, they're more powerful, can be shallow on the inside, so obviously that's not that fun. And as well, because around the Maldives, these reef passes are on the edge of really deep channels, you can get these really strong rips that pull in or out of the wave, so it can make surfing not only like a bit dangerous if you're not really sure how to navigate that, but just hard and not that fun. You know, then I'd say it's not ideal if you want to just go and charge and score like freight train tubes, because although the Maldives does have that from time to time, it's generally a lot mellower and just fun and sort of playful waves rather than like freight train barrels. But even as an advanced surfer, you know, you can still go there, do turns, find the odd barrel section and have like really fun surfs all the time. You know, it's not like so mellow that it's a write-off for advanced surfers. It's still pretty freaking sick. So then for intermediates, I'd just say it's probably the best place in the world, without exaggeration, just because there's so much variety in the waves. The waves have that right balance of power and shape with a little bit of forgiveness to sort of make it a place where you can go get loads and loads of waves like pretty consistently, have that repetition of surfing a reef break and practice things over and over again on a wave that's the same every time, and just have that sort of comfort out in the lineup as well. Whereas if you throw yourself into somewhere like the Ments, where it's really intense, you've got a hungry, frothing crowd and it's way more powerful, you just don't get as much out of it because you're just sat on the shoulder like scared. Well, that's what I do anyway. So yeah, I think the Maldives is really, really good for that. The Maldives is such a renowned destination. It's really, really crowded, and it's been that way for a long time. So if you're going to the main spots, you know, the ones that you've read about and are really famous, there's going to be a lot of people surfing there. You know, everyone wants a slice of somewhere like the Maldives, so it's just going to be that way. Especially around Toulouse, where you've got cokes and chickens, they're going to be fiercely crowded. You can go to the more remote parts. Obviously doing this on your own is quite hard because a lot of these reefs, they're in the middle of nowhere, and I don't really know how you'd get there unless you're sailing there by yourself. Even then, you don't really know when they're going to work, so that's when having the local guide's really sick. Now, I'm all for like going off to remote places and like trying to score by yourself, but you'll find it pretty tricky if you're going to like the remote atolls and rocking up at these reef passes when you don't really know when they're going to work. You've got to get your hands on a boat and got to navigate waters that you don't know. It's just not really viable for most people. So that's where your local guide comes in. I think this is just one of the best investments you can make, whether it be via the private resorts or on charter boats. You know, all these resorts and charters are informally required to employ local guides just to sort of make it fair and make sure that money's going back towards the locals. And I guess it's good for the locals as well, who, you know, might not be able to get to some of these spots without the company. So it's like a good balance, I guess. Generally, apart from Pasta Point, Lohis, Kanduma and Niama, everywhere else is free and open. You can go and surf it. So one thing I should also take time to mention is just the etiquette side of things, which, yeah, it's just something so simple, but people don't always adhere to it. So I get it, we're all going to the Maldives and it's so pristine and the waves are amazing and whatever. You know, you rock up on a boat, it's absolutely pumping, you're frothing, you want to jump in and get out there. But chances are you're going to turn up at a reef pass and there's going to be a few people out there already. They're probably not going to be stoked that a boatload of 10 more people is just about to jump off and join their session. You know, that's just like the natural selfish thing we have as surfers. There's definitely a way to approach this. So if you're turning up to a spot, there's already people surfing, just, you know, edge your way into the lineup gently. Don't just paddle straight up to the top and catch the first set wave that you see. You know, there's already a bit of a rotation going on. There's people that might have been waiting there for a while. It's super important to just sort of subtly integrate yourself into the lineup. You know, paddle to the inside first, let a few set waves go, you know, say hello to people, a few head nods, smiles, whatnot. Get a few on the inside, and then after that maybe go and sit out the back and wait your turn a little bit. But I see it so often where a boat rocks up, someone just beeline straight past you, straight up to the top of the point, straight into the first set, and they're like, yeah, this is amazing. And then as well, during the session, you might be out there having a really fun surf, catching loads of waves. It's just really good to be aware of what's going on around you. And what I mean by that is like just looking at everyone else in the lineup and going, okay, has this person caught a wave? How many waves has that person caught? So maybe I'll let somebody else go on the next one. You know, you might be on the inside and there's somebody sat slightly more on the shoulder, you know, they're a bit intimidated, a bit scared. Even though you can, it doesn't mean you just paddle around them every single time and just catch loads and loads of waves. Like, even though you are paddling past people sometimes to get in position, just be aware of, okay, I paddled past that person a minute ago, I'll let that wave go, they can have that one, I'll get the next one or wait for the next set. Like anywhere, it's worth respecting the locals. There are locals surfing at most of these well-known breaks, even some of the lesser known ones. So while I definitely agree that no one really owns the ocean. It just pays to be really respectful to the locals. So even if you're technically in the spot, the odd head nod to let them go, you know, a bit of a smile, send them on a wave. It's just like a good way to be, like wherever you are in the world. Couple of standard shortboards, you know, even if it's small and mellow, you can get away with riding like your normal shortboard. I barely rode like my fun board when I was out there. Just, you can still have like sharp rails, and even if it's a smaller day, the waves have got enough cup and power so you can cut into the face, and you know, it still be plenty good enough to ride those sort of boards. Most people get a 30-day visa on arrival. Double check that before you go, because each country is slightly different. Sometimes you do need proof of an onward ticket, so you need to show that you've got a return flight. So you can do these like dodgy things where you pay for like a fake one online. And then also, I've never actually been asked for this, but proof of accommodation. So quite often at immigration, when you go and get your passport stamped, they'll ask for where you're staying. Just show your hotel or wherever you've got booked. There's no alcohol on local islands, so if that's something that's like a make or break for your surf trip, just be aware of that. I know on boat charters you can get beers and stuff. If you've got a layover, there's not really that much to do in the city. It's not the nicest place in the world, so if you do have a layover, just, you know, pay for a decent hotel, get a massage, relax, stretch, you know, either get prepped up for your trip or wind down after one. So hopefully that's a super concise guide to everything you need to know about surfing in the Maldives. Any questions, please fire away down below. Myself and Renegade will be happy to help. In summary, it's probably going to be a lot pricier than a lot of other destinations, but the waves and the experience you'll have is likely going to be worth it. If you're on a budget, stay on one of the local islands like Toulouse do. If you've got the money and want access to that exclusivity, splash out on a resort, you're going to get fun waves. And if you want the maximum flexibility and to increase your potential for scoring waves, jump aboard a charter boat. If you want to learn more about what a boat charter in the Maldives is like, check out this video up here. This is of my trip back in March. For now, it's goodbye from me, and I'll see you in the next episode.